Hey, so I'm just testing out some stuff on here. I don't even know if anyone is live right now or in the chat. I'll check in a second, but let me see if this is working. Okay. I got some music playing, but I don't know if anyone can actually hear it. Oh boy, so give me a second. Give me a second, guys. I'm testing it out here so that when I do it on my other channel, it'll work. So let's see. I'm going to try it on my other device. See what y'all can actually hear. Okay, you guys can't hear the music. Hold on. Wait, I'm just going to cut that off. So I think I figured out what I need to do to make people hear it so that you guys can hear it. So I'm going to test out one other thing. Hold on. Just going to try a random website and see if the screen share works. If I can get it. Hold on. Okay, so now I'm going to test out the screen share. Okay. Okay, so it looks like y'all can see it. It's kind of janky. I don't know why it's doing that weird screen thing, but I'm just gonna hold on. Okay, so I still have to work on that. So now I'm just seeing if it has actually stopped the screen share. Okay, it has. There was one other thing I wanted to test. Like I said, I'm probably just gonna take this down because I'm trying to see if certain stuff works. Okay, I'm gonna try the screen share again. I'll just post something up. Let me see. Try something random. I'm doing it over here so that by the time I do it on my other channel, I have all this stuff figured out. So let's see. Okay. See, I don't know why it's doing that. You know what? Hold up. It's probably because of my web browser. So, okay, I'll test this out again on my laptop. Yeah. Outside of that, it wasn't too much that I wanted to talk about other than my concerns for those of us who are divested Black women. I know I don't normally go live on this channel. I will be doing a live stream tomorrow on my other channel at 5:30 Eastern Time. $5:30 Eastern Time is about 2:30 Pacific Time in the US. And then it's somewhere around 9:30 or 10:30 in the UK. I know some of you guys are in the UK and Finland and other places. So in the future, I will try to make my live streams a little bit earlier in the afternoon here to be respectful of the fact that we do have Black women in other parts of the world watching. So I just wanted to kind of share some things here. Listen, the reason that I have the opinions that I have is because of things that I've observed in real life along with social media. So I've always been the type of person to like warn people of things. I'm a Virgo, so that tends to be our personality. When we care about people, we're fiercely loyal to the point that it actually puts people off. So some of the things that I've experienced on here have not actually been a surprise to me because it mirrors what I go through in real life. But the reality is that people's feelings don't change overnight. Generally speaking, if people don't like you today, they're not going to like you tomorrow or 2 months from now. And so that's why I have had some conversations, whether it's here or on my other channel, about the importance of being very observant and being careful of people who didn't like you yesterday, but are appearing to be friendly to you today. Because, listen, a lot of people don't like the messages that we have here as divested Black women. And so it is my belief, from what I have observed, that there are people who are basically trying to take these messages and fit them into a pro-Black narrative. And when I say that, this is what I mean. You have some Black women who are not going to be aligned to the idea of divestment, but they do understand that more visibility needs to be given to the issues that affect Black women and girls. If you go back to some of the content uploaded here and on my other channel back in March, I have always said, I don't have a problem with that. I have always said that I don't have a problem with neutral zones. I have simply said that if you are a Black woman who is divested, to be very careful, because I've pointed out that certain spaces have not been very open and friendly to us. And apparently what has happened is that there are certain people who took that personally, right? So when I say that, what I mean is that you have certain people who feel like if you're cool with them or you're associated with them, then it's wrong, in quotes, to have a difference in opinion. And so I'm going to go more into that on my live stream tomorrow on my other channel. And that is not meant to be a drag or a roasting of anyone. And I hope everyone understands that. Differences in opinion should be respected on both sides, right? So if you have people who are saying, well, we can respect everyone's opinion, then that should include the opinions of those of us who are divestment purists, or those who may be, who may identify as Black women who are militant divested Black women, okay? I personally would call myself a divestment purist. I think it's important not to blur certain lines. I think it's important to understand that there's a difference between being a Black woman who is divested versus being a Black woman who aligns with the concept of a Black community, but feels like more visibility is needed for Black women and girls. And please understand that if you see a division, it's never been divested Black women who created those divisions. If you go into certain spaces, you'll see that it's very clear that there are Black people, women and men, who hate these messages so much that they have immediately ostracized those of us who are in these spaces. And my personal belief is that now that you have, excuse me guys, my allergies are acting up, so my voice is going in and out. But now that you have certain spaces where they have, one space has over 90,000 subscribers and another space is over 50,000. And they are both spaces that are supportive of Black women who are divested and supportive of Black women who are expanding their dating options. And so now that those spaces have grown to a certain point, you now have other people who typically align with pro-Blackness who are now taking on certain talking points. And if they are genuine in that, it's not a problem. My only thing in kind of, waving the yellow flag, the caution flag, is to warn Black women in general, particularly those of us who are divested and younger Black women, that if people have made it clear that they didn't like you in the past, then if their opinions change, there's nothing wrong with saying, well, what's changed? Why has your position changed? And there's nothing wrong with being observant and noticing that when people say, oh, they're welcoming to Black women who are divested or Black women who are divested and in interracial relationships, it's kind of like, okay, you're welcoming to us, but you have certain spaces here who have messages that are very hateful to the women in these spaces, right? So, and you support that and promote that content. But then if you have Black women who are divestment purists or Black women who identify as more militant divested Black women, that is not promoted and supported. If you're a Black woman who's a divestment purist or you're a Black woman who identifies as a militant divested Black woman, you don't get support, you don't get acknowledgement, any of that. And if you point out, well, hey, that's not being neutral, you don't get support. Not only do you not get support, but what's happening based on my observations, and there are two people that I kind of speak to about these things off of YouTube. And it's uncanny how accurate we've been, okay? But based on our observations, you know, there's not a real sense of neutrality, right? Because neutral means you don't take a side. And before I go any further, I want to make it very clear so that you guys understand. I'm not going to go out of my way to be accommodating to people who disagree with me anymore. So if you feel like I'm talking about you or somebody else, that's not my problem. Because the reality is that this can apply to multiple people. So if the shoe fits, you have to wear it, right? And the reason I say that is because when other people say the things that they have to say, no one thinks about me or how I feel, and they're not required to, right? That's why anybody in the world can make a YouTube channel and say what they have to say. And just like other people have the right to do that, I have the right to do that. So for those of you who are neutral, whether you are supportive of certain content or you are a content creator, if you're neutral, then just like you respect other people, you will respect me. Okay? If you're going to be in my space, you will respect me, and that's just the bottom line. So what I'm noticing is people who are saying that they're neutral are not requiring anything of Black men. And this, like I said, this is not just people who are divested. You know, these are Black women who align with pro-Blackness, even if they don't operate under that label. They're saying, oh yeah, we can all come into these spaces and have dialogue and conversations. But they're not looking at the men and saying, okay, if you don't want us to be hypergamous with other races of men, then you have to provide a family structure with marriages to us where you are loyal, faithful, and committed, where you are financially providing for us, and where you are establishing a legacy for us and our children, right? Because you can't have a community structure without an individual family structure. No one is requiring that of these men. So you have divested Black women who are being encouraged to listen to other points of view, but no one in these spaces is requiring anything of Black men. So you have Black men who've made content that frankly has not been very nice, we'll say, about us, right? And when you're in those spaces, you'll see people laughing at that. And when I say people, I mean Black women. You'll see Black women laughing and saying, oh, these guys are funny and it's not anything to be taken seriously, right? You'll see that content being supported. Hey, one-sided loyalty. You'll see that content being supported, right? But if you notice, there are no Black women in those spaces who are divestment purist or militant divested Black women. The only Black women in those spaces who are respected are Black women who are pro-Black, or those who are supportive of a Black community, or Black women who might identify as divested, but they are open to conversations with these people, right? And so my concerns for us, and particularly for those of you who are younger, who will be new to these spaces, is that you'll be encouraged to support something that's not actually beneficial to you. It's not beneficial to you. It's not something that's going to offer you the possibility of a marriage with a man that's going to be loyal, faithful, and committed to you, and a man who will be able to financially provide for you. Because basically what's happening in those spaces is that if you're a Black woman in that space, whether you're divested or not, what's happening is if you're in those spaces, you're being encouraged to support Black men who have messages that are very hateful and negative towards Black women. And I understand that that side of the conversation has more people who will support it than this side of the conversation. And I'm sure that people on that side understand that as well. And it's gotten to this space where if you raise that warning flag, if you have this difference in opinion, people will suggest that you don't support them. So it's now getting to this space where you can't have your freedom of thought. Okay? Do you understand that I've seen channels that are actually neutral with people who don't identify as divested? People who would probably completely disagree with this message, but when I observe their channels, they are welcoming to some of anyone. But then you have other spaces where they're saying, oh yeah, we welcome those of you who are divested and so on and so forth. But it's like, why would we as divested Black women support any space where hateful trolls, like hateful people who have trolled these spaces, are there? You know, there's a particular person who trolls almost any divested Black woman's channel that he's not blocked on. And this person has a clip of a divested Black woman's live stream from a few months ago. And that clip from his channel ended up with a news publication, and that clip went viral and could have put that particular young lady and the other people around her in danger. The divested Black women are being encouraged to go into spaces where Black male trolls like that are invited and welcomed. And when you point that out, people have a problem with it. Right? It's an issue. It's a problem. It's, oh, you don't support me. And one thing that I want to make very clear about Leah, and I'm not saying this has to apply to anyone else, but this applies to Leah 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay? Leah's support is not blind. Because even though Leah is very nice and soft-spoken, Leah still has her own opinion. And Leah having her own opinion does not mean that there's this huge disagreement or divide in the space. Leah disagreeing with one particular person doesn't mean that all of us in this space don't dislike each other. And Leah having a disagreement with a particular person doesn't mean that Leah dislikes that person. But what it does mean is that Leah has her own mind. You know, something happened on my other channel and people still feel a way about it. And I want you guys to know something. You don't have to feel a way about it. Because at the end of the day, I understand that we're people, we all have our opinions, we all have our disagreements. And a heated exchange with the person does not mean that it's a permanent vendetta, right? But Leah's always going to have her own opinion, and that's just what it is. And you'll respect it or you won't. But whether or not you respect it doesn't change the fact that Leah will always have her own opinion. Okay? And I'm saying that to the people who would see those exchanges, who are not Black women and they're not divested. So I'm saying this to those of you who see those exchanges and try to say, oh, divested Black women don't like each other. A lot of you all don't understand how many Black women are supportive of these messages. And a disagreement between a handful of people never means that the whole space is in conflict. You can look at the Black manosphere and see some of the conversations that they've had recently. And no one says that just because they have disagreements that they all hate each other. Right? Because for anyone who is not a Black woman, everyone, other people understand that there are going to be differences in opinion and people will have disagreements, and that's just what it is. But I really need for anyone who comes across this channel or my other channel to understand something about me. I'm always me, right? I'm always going to have my own opinions, my own freedom of thought. And just like I respect it in other people. And because of that, even though I may have a demeanor that is soft, because of that, I am a bit stubborn in certain conversations, and that triggers people. It upsets people. Sometimes when you have differences in opinion with people, you will clash. I'm okay with that. That's the nature of these kind of social media platforms. You're not going to agree with everyone. And I personally think it's dangerous to encourage Black women to go into spaces that are not friendly to us if we're divested. Because pro-Black channels can be promoted even when they make content that's very nasty and negative towards divested Black women, particularly divested Black women who are in interracial relationships. Those messages are being promoted. But if you're a divested Black woman and you stand firm on what you believe and you go into those spaces, you're not going to get the same type of support. And that's why I don't believe that it's beneficial for us to go into those spaces. You guys have to understand something. A lot of times when you have messages that are kind of on the fringe but are gaining ground, you'll have larger groups that will try to co-opt those messages, and I will go into that further during my live stream tomorrow on my other channel. But basically, pro-Black people understand this very well when you talk about certain pro-Black messages. But yet they refuse to acknowledge that that's the same thing that they're doing with divestment. That's why I say, pay attention to the fact that they're trying to put a pro-Black spin on the concept of divestment. And you have a lot of people in those spaces now suggesting that Black women who are divested, we hate our Blackness. Why? Because as women before me have said, the concept of pro-Blackness is pro-Black male. That's why you'll never see a pro-Black person when they talk about their beliefs and their opinions. You'll never see a pro-Black person saying, well, what about my Black daughters? What about my Black mother, my Black sister, my Black aunt, my Black niece, my Black, my Black girl who's a cousin? They'll never say that. What you will hear pro-Black people say, or people who are Black community minded say, you'll hear them say, well, what about my Black father, my Black man, my Black son, my Black grandfather? In those spaces, you'll never see them really promote Black girls or Black women. And when you hear that, you have to understand that what that means is that you're in a space that's not really aligned with the messages that we have here, right? Because otherwise they would understand that loving your Blackness can mean that you are a divested Black woman who loves your complexion, whether you are darker skin, lighter skin, caramel complexion, brown skin, whatever. You can love your Blackness as an individual, and you can also understand that it's okay for you to do what's beneficial for your personal life. And if that means running away from people who are negative, who make it clear that they don't advocate for you, then that's fine. It's actually what everyone else on the planet does. And if people don't understand that and they don't respect it, then that's not a space that is supportive of divested Black women. So you can go on to certain channels that are pro-Black, and they'll say, oh yeah, we welcome you, we do this and that, but they only welcome you to a point. And in those spaces, you will see people say, well, we can say what we want to say here, so when we're in neutral places, yeah, we're cool, but on our channels, we say what we want to say. But that respect is not offered to those of us who are divestment purists, or those of you who may be militant divested Black women. That same respect is not offered. People will assume that you're taking shots at specific individuals when really you're stating your opinion. And at the end of the day, let me just be very clear. YouTube is a public platform. So if you get up here and you upload content, and I say this for myself as well, and I said this on my live stream channel, anything that we say and we upload and we leave it as a public video, other people have the right to comment on it. And people understand that when our conversations are being recorded, or when people are saying certain things to us and about us. They're very understanding of the fact that, oh, well, they said it publicly, so whatever. But when we mirror their behaviors, all of a sudden it's a problem. So I want to make it very clear that because you have certain spaces where they are pro-Black, or they are supportive of the concept of a Black community without requiring anything of Black men, because those spaces can talk about Black women who are divested, and they can talk about Black women who are divested and are in interracial relationships, then we have the right to respond. We have the right to share our experiences. We have the right to talk about them as well. Because people can say, hey, I can care less. Hey, Tiger Lily. Hey, Hecate, Queen of the Vampires. People can say these are just conversations. But that's disingenuous. Because anyone who's been on YouTube long enough, particularly people who have, say more than like 10,000 subs, they understand that their conversations drive the way that people think. Do you know what I mean? They understand that their conversations influence people. So it's not just conversation, because unfortunately, there are some people who literally will hear things on social media and that will determine the way they live their lives. So you have people who will hear about the concept of divestment. They will hear about the ideas of Black women who are single, expanding your dating options. And that will determine the way they treat you if they come across you in your real life. So it's not just talk. Just like you have certain Black men who have certain talking points about how they don't want to marry Black women from the US and so on and so forth. And they feel like, we're just worth a pump and dump. When you look at those men's real lives and you see that they're not actually married, and if they are married, they're not married to Black women from the US, you understand very quickly that for them, it's not just conversation. But people love to gaslight Black women, particularly those of us who are outspoken in expressing certain things. They gaslight us and they deflect. And unfortunately, there are other Black women who participate in that. They participate in that. And when you call it out, it's a problem. No, I don't have a problem with people saying, even though we don't all share exactly the same opinions, there are certain things that we agree on and we can collaborate with each other in certain instances. I don't have a problem with that, as long as that doesn't mean that divested Black women have to be muzzled, right? So there was a great live stream between two Black women content creators, one who is divested in an interracial marriage, and another Black woman who I've never heard her identify as divested, but she's very supportive of these messages. And at one point, they had some differences in opinion, but they're able to come together and collaborate with each other. I think that's important, because in those conversations, it never means that the Black woman who supports divestment has to stifle her opinions, right? But in these spaces that are identified as pro-Black, you can't go into those spaces and say, I'm a divestment purist. I don't believe in the idea of a Black community, because there aren't enough Black men who believe in the importance of establishing a family and community structure. Hold on, guys. I got to take a sip of water real quick. Allergies. Sorry, y'all. But you can't ever go into those spaces and openly say those things and say there is no Black community without a solid family structure. There is no Black community when the men aren't being held accountable for certain things. And when the Black women are not being held accountable for the fact that they require nothing for access to their wombs. You can't have those conversations in those spaces. So it's a one-sided compromise that frankly is not beneficial to those of us who are divested Black women. And when you point that out, people have no problem talking about, that's not good for the quote unquote community. Well, if this is a neutral space, right? If you're a Black woman and you are divested and you're in a space that's neutral, they should understand and respect our position, and our position as divested Black women is that there is no Black community because there is no solid family structure. There is no point of having conversation after conversation after conversation with the Black male collective if those conversations don't lead to anything that is beneficial to Black women. If these sexually reckless people are still talking about going to Brazil and other parts of the world to find women, then what is there to talk about? It is dangerous for Black women to give energy and time and effort to people who have nothing to offer us. Do you understand, ladies, that if you have standards and requirements for men, then you'll get the type of man you want regardless of his skin color? Other races of women are taught to do that. That's true, Tiger Lily. Yep, you would compare it to a woman waking up and getting the strength to leave her abusive husband. Exactly, I can care less. We do not have Black communities because there is no community without a solid family structure. And that is not being emphasized in those spaces. You have Black men who basically openly say, F the Black community, it's not their responsibility to build. And when they say those things, the Black women in those spaces say, they laugh about it. And they think that those men are funny. They like the talking points. They find humor in those men. And to me, it's like, well, that's not funny. That's not funny at all. Because what that means is you're encouraging and laughing at these men as they look at the Black women in the audience and say, you're not worthy of a family or community structure. That's what they're telling you. And the Black women who laugh about it are saying, well, yeah, we're not worthy of it. That's ridiculous to me. And I will never support that. Now, if there's a space that says, okay, this space is neutral and you can be here with that opinion and we will not allow people to attack you, I can respect that. But if being neutral means that you have to fall in step with the concept of a Black community, or, that people can suggest that divestment means that you hate your Blackness, you get the middle finger. That space gets the middle finger because that's not something that is supportive or understanding of the women in these spaces. When you have women in these spaces who have raised certain concerns, like, well, you have certain commenters or content creators that troll Black women's channels, or that have made it very clear that they feel no allegiance to us, they don't want a sisterhood with us. When you point that out and people tell you to get over it, that's not a space that is respectful of our feelings. And when you point out, you know what, I have these opinions and these messages have been hurtful to us. And these are the ways that these messages have impacted us in our personal lives. When you say that, people basically look at you and say, oh, well, you're wrong. You need to get over it and da-da-da-da. When you point out other things, like there was something else that I pointed out, right? Where I was speaking generally, but like I said, sometimes, listen, Sometimes you hear something and it applies. That's not my problem. If you hear something that I say and it applies, whether you're someone who's a commenter or a content creator, that's not my problem. But I said something before where I was basically like, telling people, like, listen, when you see certain situations play out on social media and you feel like there's a conflict, be careful about jumping into it, because a lot of times people get into conflict, but if they're cool with each other, they resolve it, but you don't know that they've resolved it, so you jump into something without knowing the full thing. Apparently people got in their feelings. Like, apparently it's people screenshotting chats, whether I'm here or in other places, or sending people links. You can do that all you want, because I only have one mother and one father. Okay? And any of the people who try to check me are not my mom and dad. And my parents don't try to check me. And frankly, the way that I've been spoken to and talked about on this platform, my parents never did that. Okay? So people got offended by that. But if you look around YouTube, not just in Black spaces, but in other spaces, people argue all the time. They have disagreements and flare-ups. And then next thing you know, everything is cool. I initially said that a few weeks ago, and we literally just saw that happen this week. But it was a problem for me to say that. Let me look at something. Right, one-sided. That's why it's good to stay out of it. And I say that even for myself, right? I don't want, like, if you see a conflict between me and anyone else, I don't want you all to feel like you have to jump in the middle of it. Because this is a space where we come to because we're like-minded. Or even if you have some moments where you disagree with me, but we have dialogue, right? It's not your job to, like, spend your time on YouTube and comment sections going back and forth with people. But when I said that, apparently it was taken a certain type of way. But I'm telling you, like, there are people, I'll say it like this, there are disagreements that I've had with people, or maybe they have had with me, simply because, I'm gonna be honest with you, I jumped into things. Hey, Toffee. I jumped into things not really understanding that at the end of the day, maybe there was room for these people to make up. And when everyone makes up and you're the person who has jumped out and gotten into these back and forths, you know, that falls on you. That's very true. I can care less. And Tiger Lily, you're talking about it. You have a lot of Black women who say our men. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's because you have a lot of Black women, who see their Black fathers, their Black sons, and all the other Black men in their families. They see those Black men in every Black man that they come across. And that's why they say our men. But you have Black men who make it very clear. They'll say, well, I don't have to respect Black women just because I have a Black mother or a Black daughter. They openly say that. That's why I say you have a lot of, you know, you have women, a particular woman in this space who has pointed out that a lot of Black women act like pedophiles. Because your son is your man, and every other Black male or Black boy that you see reminds you of your man or the other Black men in your family. That's why they say, right, Toffee, I have Black sons, I have a Black father, and they will never say, I have a Black daughter, I have a Black mother, and because of my Black daughter and my Black mother, I support, the search parties for Malia Davis, or I support Sandra Bland. They never will say that. And not only will they never say that, but the Black women in those spaces never require them to do that. The Black women in those spaces who are putting a pro-Black spin on divestment talking points will only support Black women and Black girls when the person who victimized those women and girls is not a Black man. And the problem with that is that in the majority of cases where a Black woman or a Black girl is the victim of a violent crime, the perpetrator is a Black man. And by them remaining silent, that means that in the majority of cases where a Black woman or a Black girl is victimized, she gets no advocacy or support. And just by me pointing this out, there are going to be people who are more offended by me saying these things than they are about the fact that they're not actually getting the advocacy and support that we as Black women and Black girls deserve. They'll get more offended by me saying it. You guys have to understand something. Certain people are able to align with each other because even though they may have certain disagreements, they ultimately align on the concept of a Black community and pro-Blackness. But it's a strong community. The out-of-wedlock birth rate is ridiculous. And that birth rate should not be continued into future generations. Now, obviously, if you have children, you're going to love your children and do what you can to support them. But as Black women, we go around pointing out, oh, we're the original woman, and we birthed civilizations. So why is it that the Black woman collective doesn't feel like she deserves basic protections? And why do these women get angry when other Black women point out we deserve a family structure? If you're a solid woman, you're a good-hearted woman, you deserve a man regardless of his race. You deserve a man who honors you enough to marry you and to be loyal and committed to you. You deserve a man who loves you enough to say, you know what? Okay, if you want to work, that's cool. But if you don't, that's cool as well. You deserve to be able to run your errands in the middle of the day because you're a stay-at-home wife, or you have a job that allows you to work from home, or a job that allows you to have a flexible schedule so that you're not carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. You deserve that, Black woman. And the fact that I have to we got to tell them that is mind-boggling to me. You understand how convenient it is to be able to get your groceries in the morning or mid-afternoon instead of having to do it after everyone is getting off of work? If you typically run your errands after work, try running your errands, like if you're able to or you have a day off. Try running your errands in the morning or like midday and see the difference in who you see out. Mostly women who are either retired, they work from home, or they're stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home wives. But even having this conversation will offend a lot of Black women because a lot of Black women think that it's a badge of honor to work themselves into heart disease, coronary heart failure, obesity, stressing out over bills. The Black woman collective views that as a badge of honor. And the sleight of hand with that is you have a lot of Black men who on one hand will say, oh, you all are too busy for a man because you're working up the corporate ladder, right? But then when they come across a Black woman who says, well, you know, I don't want to have to do that. I want to be able to have a career, but I don't want to have to work myself to death because I want a man who can provide. Then you're a gold digger. And other Black women will call you that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being a career woman and wanting to do that. But what I'm saying is that there's nothing wrong with wanting to do the opposite. But when you go into those spaces and you say those things, these people who are saying, well, yeah, I'm pro-Black, but you're welcome here, don't have a problem with that. They'll call you lazy and this, that, and the third, but run your errands on a Tuesday or a Wednesday between like 10 o'clock your time and maybe 2 o'clock. From 10 in the morning to maybe 2 p.m. and see who you see out. Okay? Hey, Leonard. That's true. I can care less. The majority of Black women don't identify with Black women and girls. Because if they did, they would be saying, well, you know what? I made certain decisions in my past, and I think you should do certain things differently. They don't say that. What the reason that a lot of Black people in the collective have fucked up lives is because they receive counsel from people who are giving them advice to justify their bad decisions instead of saying, well, you know what, let me pull you to the side and let you know, like, this is what I did wrong and this is what you can do differently. You have a lot of Black people who profess Christianity, but they must not read the Bible because that religion that they love so much talks to them about the importance of wise counsel. But yet they're taking advice from people who are not honest enough to tell them, like, listen, you can take a different path. Yep, I saw that one-sided. And they don't even understand the concept of submission. They don't, the idea of submission for Christian women, right, is for those who are married. And if you're married to a man who loves you in the way that, you know, if you believe this, if you're married to a man who loves you in the way that Christ loved the church. So he loved the church so much that he was self-sacrificing. He was willing to die for it. And the ending part of that verse talks about basically Christian men who are married are supposed to love their wives as much as they love themselves. How many Black women who are pro-Black do you know who are in relationships, or if they're married, who are in relationships with Black men who love them that way? Who love them enough to be self-sacrificing? Who literally love them as much as they love themselves? Love them enough to die for them? Yep, she sure was slandering Black women. And people this is an interesting thing to me about people who are pro-Black, right? They will say that Black women who are divested are anti-Black women. You guys have to understand, like, I see people when they leave comments and I hear people when they talk, right? So they basically suggest that we hate Black women because of certain conversations that we have. But they can listen to pro-Black people all day disrespect Black women, downplay Black women, misquote religious text to Black women in a way that would suggest that we are supposed to submit to any man simply because he's a man, and use those religious texts to suggest that we don't deserve marriage. They can listen to Black men who completely are disrespectful to Black women. They can listen to it, they can laugh at it, they can collab with those men. But they will then have the audacity to say that Black women in these spaces are hateful. You're right, Leonard. They do take it to the extreme. So that's why I say we have to be careful about the spaces that we're in. And that is not me trying to control anyone. That is not me trying to tell anyone what to do. But in any other community, in any other group, people respect it when you say, like, you need to be careful. You need to be careful. You need to be mindful. Da, 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 da. Right, Toffee? We're only hateful because we see their true colors. They have, like, people have had the audacity to say that some divested Black women sound like guys like Sergeant Willie Pete, but then will say nothing about the pro-Black spaces that have open invitations for Black men who are very hateful towards Black women. And they say nothing about the pro-Black spaces who mock the handful of cases where you have Black women who have been the victims of domestic violence when their partners are non-Black men. Now, they don't talk about the majority of cases involving Black women in domestic violence, because if they talked about that, then they would be talking about the Black men that they worship. But they have the audacity to call us hateful when they literally laugh at Black women dying, or when they literally are friendly to Black men who talk crap about us, who have built entire platforms talking crap about us. But yet they call us hateful. And me pointing that out will be a problem for some people. And frankly, that's their problem, not mine. I learned a long time ago not to make other people's issues mine. Me having an opinion and a point of view is something that I'm allowed to have, just like any other adult. And I'm wondering if maybe people got confused because I'm soft-spoken. So that was supposed to mean that, you know, I would just fall in line with whatever. But I'm sorry, this is some bullshit. Right, Leonard? Anyway, guys, try to catch me tomorrow if you can at 5:30 Eastern time on my other channel. I have the link in the description area. If you can't catch me live, I get it. I know it's the weekend and you guys have a lot to do. So if you can't catch me live, please catch the playback. Thank y'all for being here. I know this was very random. I know I don't normally go live on this channel, but I was trying to test my screen share and, you know, seeing what I needed to do to play music in a way where people could hear it when I go live on my other channel. So I'm going to sign off because it's approaching 11:30 Eastern time. So I'm getting a little bit sleepy. Oh, you follow her on Twitter, Chaz. That's cool. I gotta find you, Toffee, because I remember and on another channel you said you have a Twitter page. I'm gonna check out your links one-sided. I'm gonna check out your links. All right, guys. I hope you all have a good night, and I hope to see you tomorrow, 5:30 Eastern time. Please support me, support Love M, support Lolita, support divested content everywhere you see it. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good night.